Today is Tuesday, October 4th. We have an update from Florida as the death toll from Hurricane Ian rises again, and from Puerto Rico as President Biden surveys the damage, and even from Mexico, where another hurricane hit. Also, the most high-profile and serious trial stemming from the January 6th Capitol riot begins, what both sides are saying so far. Plus, what a year-long investigation found about abuse within professional women's soccer, why Kim Kardashian was fined more than $1 million for one of her Instagram posts, and what to know about the holiest day of the year in Judaism. Those stories and more news to know in today's episode. Welcome to The Newsworthy. All the day's news in around 10 minutes. Fast, fair, fun, and on the go. I'm Erica Mandy. Thanks so much for being here. You ready? Let's do this. President Biden and the First Lady flew to Puerto Rico to see firsthand the enormous amount of damage caused by Hurricane Fiona. The island is still struggling to recover more than 2 weeks after that hurricane blew through as a Category 1 storm. Tens of thousands are still in the dark without power. Many more are still suffering without clean drinking water. In a speech on the island, President Biden promised to rebuild the badly damaged U.S. territory, saying, quote, "I am committed to this island." Hurricane Fiona may have lacked the sheer power of Hurricane Ian that struck Florida, but keep in mind, Puerto Rico is still trying to rebuild itself 5 years after Hurricane Maria. In fact, President Biden's visit came exactly 5 years to the day after former President Trump visited the island to survey the damage caused by Maria. Next up, President Biden plans to survey the damage in Florida tomorrow. Of course, the cleanup there is just beginning, and the death toll from Hurricane Ian keeps rising. Some reports now say at least 100 people have died in Florida, while more and more people continue to be rescued from flooded homes every day. At the same time, about 500,000 people still do not have power in the state. Some say it could take years for Fort Myers, Sanibel Island, and several other Florida's hardest-hit coastal areas to recover. Meanwhile, on the Pacific coast, a different hurricane hit southwest Mexico as a Category 1 storm yesterday. Fortunately, Hurricane Orlene quickly shrunk down to a tropical storm. Still, Orlene could cause flash flooding and landslides as it drops as much as a foot of rain south of the U.S. border. For the first time in 5 years, North Korea just fired a missile over Japan, and officials say it's believed to be the farthest the country has ever launched one of its weapons. The scare forced alerts and evacuations in Japan and froze trains on their tracks, all in case the missile struck them. The test was also North Korea's 5th round of missile launches in only 10 days. Officials say the missile tests are part of the country's goal to eventually build a nuclear weapons program that could reach the United States and others around the world. Leaders in Japan, South Korea, and here in the U.S. all called the launch reckless and dangerous. Opening arguments are underway in the most high-profile and serious criminal case from the January 6th attack on the Capitol. The founder of the far-right extremist group Oath Keepers, along with 4 other members of the group, are all on trial. They're facing rare seditious conspiracy charges. It essentially accuses them of trying to overturn the government by trying to prevent the peaceful transition of power from one president to the next. The government's prosecutor accused the Oath Keepers leader, Stuart Rhodes, of planning an armed rebellion to stop Joe Biden from becoming president. They alleged that what happened on January 6th was not spontaneous, but a detailed plot that Rhodes and other Oath Keepers had been planning since the election. In a secret recording played to the jury, Rhodes is heard saying that his only regret is that they should have brought rifles to the Capitol. Rhodes didn't even go into the Capitol that day, but is accused of acting like a general, sending troops into battle. The defense, on the other hand, argues the government essentially cherry-picked information to make them look bad and that nothing they did was illegal. The defense says the only reason members of the group were even there that day was to provide security for the rally, that really they're a peacekeeping force. Rhodes is a graduate of Yale Law School and is planning to testify in his own defense. 40 witnesses could be called, including police officers who responded that day, as well as other members of the Oath Keepers. The trial is expected to last about 6 weeks. Planned Parenthood will set up its first ever mobile abortion clinic. The idea is to be closer to the states where abortions are now banned or restricted, cutting down travel times and costs for women who cross state borders to get the procedure. The first mobile clinic will be in southern Illinois, where it is legal to get an abortion, but it's right next to the state of Missouri, where the procedure is almost entirely banned. In fact, that location was chosen because the closest Planned Parenthood office to the Illinois-Missouri border that already exists now has wait times of 2.5 weeks. The office also saw a 300% increase in women coming from outside of Illinois and Missouri since the Supreme Court's decision in June to overturn Roe v. Wade. The mobile clinic will be set up in an RV and offer consultations and abortion pills when it launches next month. The time of year is here to name a variety of Nobel Prize winners, recognizing groundbreaking contributions in various fields. First up, the Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine. And the winner is a Swedish scientist focusing on genetics. Dr. Svante Pääbo was honored for work that created an entirely new field of ancient DNA studies. He figured out a way to retrieve DNA from small 40,000-year-old bones, leading to his discovery of the Neanderthal genome. Basically, the DNA of early humans that disappeared about 30,000 years ago. He even found that Neanderthals had children with humans at that time, which was a surprise to many. Scientists were then able to study genetic differences between early humans and humans today and understand what role those differences may play in disease, including COVID-19. More Nobel Prizes will be awarded this week for literature, chemistry, as well as the Peace Prize on Friday. More news is still coming up, but first, a quick break for our sponsor. When I got pregnant, I went to an OBGYN's office that a friend recommended, and she was good. But then I never actually saw her again. With every new appointment, I was sent to a different doctor in the same office, so it was hard to connect. And then when I had to go back in 2 different times to get my blood drawn because of 2 separate mix-ups, I knew I needed to switch doctors, yes, in the middle of my pregnancy. Ultimately, I'm so glad I switched. I had a much better experience with the new doctor. But it made me realize I should have done more research or looked at more options originally to maybe avoid that situation in the first place. ZocDoc is a free app that shows you doctors who are patient-reviewed, take your insurance, and are available when you need them. Whether you want to search for a specialist that takes your insurance or read more patient reviews, ZocDoc can help. Go to ZocDoc.com/newsworthy and download the ZocDoc app for free. Then start your search for a top-rated doctor today. Many are available within 24 hours. That's ZocDoc.com/newsworthy. ZocDoc.com/newsworthy. Well, the results from an independent investigation into women's professional soccer are in. The U.S. Soccer Federation released the full findings, and they aren't good. The report says systemic abuse and sexual misconduct were widespread across the league, involving multiple teams, coaches, and players. Former acting U.S. Attorney General Sally Yates was in charge of the year-long investigation. As Yates wrote, quote, "Abuse in the National Women's Soccer League is rooted in a deeper culture in women's soccer, beginning in youth leagues that normalizes verbally abusive coaching and blurs boundaries between coaches and players. Unwanted sexual advances, inappropriate touching, verbal harassment, and forced sex were some of the traumatic experiences players described." And it says management dismissed complaints. The president of the U.S. Soccer Federation said the findings were heartbreaking and deeply troubling. In the past season, half of the league's head coaches either stepped down or were fired for misconduct. So what comes next? U.S. Soccer says it'll take immediate action to follow the report's recommendations. It'll establish an Office of Participant Safety and mandate standards for background checks from youth soccer to the sport's highest levels. Kim Kardashian has agreed to pay nearly $1.3 million to the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission to settle civil charges. The SEC says a post on her Instagram account broke the law. In June of last year, Kim K wrote that her friends told her about a certain crypto opportunity. Well, the Kardashian was paid $250,000 to make that post to her 225 million Instagram followers, but she didn't clearly indicate anywhere it was a paid ad. Along with the $1.3 million payment, she's also agreed not to promote anything crypto-related for the next 3 years, and she'll cooperate in an ongoing investigation. Although one thing she won't have to do is admit that she did anything wrong. Her attorney said Kim is pleased to have resolved this matter with the SEC. She's now just one on an ever-growing list of celebrities who've been fined for improperly promoting cryptocurrencies. Boxer Floyd Mayweather, DJ Khaled, and actor Steven Seagal are some other big names to get in trouble for something similar. By the way, that $1.3 million settlement might sound like a lot, but keep in mind, the Kardashian is worth an estimated $1.8 billion. So that fine to her is about the equivalent of a $100 fine for the average U.S. family. Amazon is launching a new hub it says is meant to make shopping more affordable and accessible, including for those on government assistance. It's called Amazon Access. It has info on using Amazon Layaway, which lets you pay over time, and paying with SNAP benefits or food stamps for things like groceries through Amazon. It also helps with how to get a discounted Prime membership if you're eligible, as well as Amazon Cash, which lets you shop without a debit or credit card. Amazon says they're doing this in part to help with rising costs on food and other essential items. It's estimated that while there are more than 200 million Prime members worldwide, many lower-income customers do not use the program. The Jewish holiday Yom Kippur begins tonight at sundown. It's the holiest day of the year in Judaism, also known as the Day of Atonement. It's when Jewish people reflect, pray, and ask for forgiveness for their sins. So it's observed, not necessarily celebrated. It lasts until sundown tomorrow. Many Jews will take the day off from work and school tomorrow and may go 25 hours without eating or drinking. Many Jewish families and communities will gather before and after Yom Kippur to have festive meals, first in preparation to fast and then to break the fast. Well, that's it for the main news today, so now it's time for Trivia Tuesday, when we ask a different trivia question every week. But first, this podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. There are times I catch myself getting frustrated at a situation, whether it's part of parenting or running a business. But just like I want to teach my son to do, I do best when I take a deep breath and keep a more positive problem-solving mindset, no matter what it is I'm facing, big or small. And I've learned a therapist can really help me keep the mindset I want to have, making it easier to not only accomplish my goals, but to also enjoy the process of getting there. And that's what it's really all about, isn't it? I personally think everyone should give therapy a try. And BetterHelp is a convenient, accessible, affordable way to get started with it. It's entirely online. You just fill out a brief survey and then get matched with a therapist. And you can switch therapists anytime until you find the right one for you. When you want to be a better problem solver, therapy can get you there. Visit betterhelp.com/newsworthy today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/newsworthy. Okay, now back to Trivia Tuesday. Today's trivia question is, what is the national animal of Scotland? You can answer the question and play along on Instagram. Just find and follow us at NewsworthyPod. Look for the trivia quiz in our Instagram stories today. As for last week's trivia question, what alcoholic beverage is made from juniper berries? The answer is gin. You cannot call it a gin if it isn't made with juniper berries. Juniper is such an integral part that if you crush a fresh purple juniper berry in your hand, it'll smell like gin. Like other alcohols, it's fermented with a grain or a fruit and then distilled. But the addition of juniper, as well as other spices and herbs, is what gives it its taste. Gin has actually been around since the Middle Ages, originating around the Netherlands, and it became popular with soldiers, which is how it got to England and eventually the U.S. Gin reached its peak around the time of Prohibition, due in large part to how easy it is to make, which is why you may have heard of bathtub gin. Well, thank you so much for listening today. Be sure to follow The Newsworthy in your favorite podcast app if you haven't already, so you never miss an episode and are always in the know. We'll be back with another news roundup tomorrow. Until then, have a great day.